So very good morning, dear students. So today we are going to continue with that second series of lectures on human resource analytics. And here we are going to talk about a topic from Unit 2, which is the data management and people analytics. So data management is very, very crucial. It is the core of any it is a core with respect to data management. In fact, with respect to any analytics, data management is a very, very core and very high priority activity with respect to analytics. So the topic we are going to see is DCOVA for data management. So let us quickly see what is meant by DCOVA. Just a minute. Yeah. So as we can clearly see that DCOVA, before that we're going to get into what is meant by before getting into DCOVA, we have to understand what is the data management. So data management, according to a very reputed third-party source called Dataversity, is actually called. It's a very comprehensive collection of practices, concepts, procedures, processes, and a wide range of accompanying systems that allow for an organization to gain control over of its data resources. Now, the key is that allow and gain control. So you can see a very clear definition of collection of practices, concepts, procedures, processes. It comprises a number of things and a wide range of accounting system. So data management is also from a different perspective. We can see that it is an overall practice which is actually involved with the entire life cycle, because every data will have a life cycle. Some data are, I think they are for eternity. Okay, but many data actually, with respect to usage point of view, will have a life cycle. So it is also an overall practice which is involved with the entire life cycle of a given data asset. From its original creation point, because every data will have a creation point, just like human beings, and to its final retirement. So the retirement, we mostly use it from the context of putting it to use, and how it progresses and changes throughout its lifetime through the internal and external data streams of an enterprise. Because as a data once is created, now it gets modified, it gets changed as it passes through the internal and external data environments of an enterprise. So this is actually the definition of data COVA and data management, and this is the framework of DCOVA. So you'd be curious to know what is DCOVA. So DCOVA stands for define, collect, organize, visualize, and analyze. So this is a framework with respect to DCOVA with respect to data management. So define, collect, organize, visualize, and analyze. And what is the objective of this one is DCOVAs? Now you have to understand. First of all, you have to have a very clear understanding of the variables, and you have to clearly define the variables, because the variables are going to store the data. And you also understand the issues, and then you have to understand also how to define variables, and how to collect the data, and to identify different ways to collect, because there is a lot of things, a lot of situations where you cannot collect the full population. You have to collect a sample, and also understand the types of survey errors. So these are some of the objectives of the PCOVA. And this is actually a very broad structure of DCOVA. So with an example, so at the center it starts with variables. Variables are defined into numerical and non-numerical, which is called categorical. And categorical is a qualitative data, for example, marital status, and then ordinal data. And then we have in the numerical part, we have the discrete data, where the data can be counted, for example, in the number of students. Whereas the one more type of data is actually numerical, is called, where the method of data collection is through measurement. So the data is actually going to be continuous. And example of weight and voltages and are examples of a continuous type of measurement data. It comes in a numerical. And these are some of the objectives. Further, what is the uh, usage of this DCOVA, and what are the objectives? So these are some of the uses. If you can see in the above examples, for example, if a marketing research analyst needs to assess the effectiveness of a new television advertisement, so if there is definitely going to use this. An auditor wants to review the final transaction of a company in order to determine whether the company is in compliance with the generally accepted accounting principles. So there, everywhere, you actually the data is actually going to be collected, needs to be collected. And as I told you, the collecting data is very, very crucial. Okay, so because when you have flawed data, it is definitely going to lead error. And even if you have a very sophisticated statistical model to analyze the data, when the data is flawed, then it is not going to be of much use. And data collection, there are two sources, primary and secondary sources. So primary sources is actually your data collected from an experiment and observation data. And the secondary sources is actually the data, the person who's collecting the data is not performing the data analysis, is not the data collector. So there are a lot of third-party sources where you can actually get the data which is already pre-existing data, and for example data on the internet example. And secondary sources data is actually very quick and relatively cheap, but the primary sources is actually when the data is not available, then you have to definitely go for primary sources. So these are actually the various data sources, and for a different experiment. Okay, so how do you what is the type of data collection method, and what are the results, and what are the data studies, everything is very clearly given in this particular slide. And we have to quickly understand what you mean by population in a sample. A population is actually consisting of all the items where you want to draw a conclusion. The population is the entire group, where a sample is you take a portion of the population for the analysis because of cost and time constraints. And the sample is going to be less time consuming, and it is going to be cheaper, and it is going to be less cumbersome. And when you have more data, then it definitely then more time needed for number crunching. And the sample is actually to be done very properly. If done very properly, it is actually a representative of the population, and we can also draw conclusion about the population with minimum time and the cost. And there are two more types of data, that is structured and unstructured. Structured, unstructured data is actually you have a format. You have a format, you have a methodology, everything is there. And unstructured data is what? For example, today we have data from social media. So, for example, if we talk about the tweets in platform X, okay, or review comments in Amazon. So these are all unstructured data. So a lot of today data, video is also coming in unstructured data. So a lot of images are also coming in unstructured data. So many of the today 80% of the data is unstructured, and we need to convert that into structured data for very, very simple understanding as well as analysis. So this is a little bit about structured and unstructured data. So thank you very much.